Hello, and welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, healer, intuitive tarot reader, and professional witch. And today I'm wrapping up the 2025 era of the podcast and talking about what's next. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. You can tune in every Monday morning going forward, as that is when the podcast episodes will drop. And I'll be talking a bit more about that as we get into it. If you love the show, the best way to support it for free is by listening daily, leaving a review, and subscribing or following in your favorite podcast app. If you want to access the most up-to-date info on all the upcoming events, presentations, musings, and info and photos of my day-to-day life, my newsletter is a one-stop shop for all of those things. The link to join the newsletter list will be in the show notes. If you're interested or know someone that might be a good fit to be a guest on the podcast, you can fill out my form, also linked in the show notes. This season, I started debuting some of the guest episodes that I've had, and that form will continue to be open, and my hope is to get a guest interview out once a month. We'll see how that goes. So you can find the links for any of these offers in the show notes or on my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot, in addition to the images of the cards I pull on each episode. All right, well, welcome to season 20, the last episode of season 20, where I've been talking to guests about their experiences and interest in working with tarot, and I'm talking about what's next on the podcast. If you haven't listened to my other seasons yet, you can check those out. And like I said, today I am wrapping up the 2025 era of the podcast, and of course this is actually going out now. It is now 2026, but if you've listened to my other seasons, you'll know I like doing 13 episode seasons, or that's what I was doing in 2025. And so this was kind of the last episode of season 20. So yeah, if you've been listening, the podcast has now been out for slightly over a year. This is the 264th episode of the podcast, if you can believe it. And thanks for following me on this wild journey. And I guess I say wild because, I knew I wanted to start a podcast in probably summer of 2024. I started thinking about it, started talking to other folks that I knew locally that are into tarot, some that were other therapists, and some just other kind of witchy folks. And I was kind of trying to find a co-host. I was like, I think it'd be too boring if it's just me rambling on the podcast all the time about tarot. How will I have enough to talk about, etc., etc.? I talked to other folks and I kind of wasn't getting any traction on that. And I just kept talking about how I wanted to do a podcast on tarot. And again, if you're listening to this now and you've been listening for a year, you'll see I've had plenty of ability to find things to talk about. And only recently, right in this season, started having guests at all. So if you want to check out, like 260 episodes of me talking about tarot, check out the other seasons. So yeah, I'm going to go through and talk about every season, just kind of give an overview. I started with season 1 in early 2025, talking about tarot basics. So I kind of set the scene for the podcast, set the expectation that I was going to be putting out episodes Monday through Friday for all of 2025, despite how others felt about that. I definitely had some folks that maybe not in the beginning were like, that's crazy. But after a while, we're like, ooh, aren't you gonna get burned out? Or like, how are you keeping up with that? Or like, don't you have a full-time job? Which I do. But yeah, I don't know. I'd kind of made this commitment to myself. I thought of this title, Everyday Tarot, where to me it's kind of twofold. And so we're going to be talking about kind of the secondary definition of how I think about everyday tarot. But the first one was that I was like, oh, like, yeah, I want to talk about do it every day. Great, like everyday tarot, done. That's the title. But really kind of my initial thoughts were like, I want to talk about the tarot that people do every day, not like virtual tarot, not necessarily like you pay and go to a tarot reader, which like is great. Please support your local tarot readers. Um, but that I wanted to talk about how the everyday person, how anyone could get into tarot and read for themselves. And I think that that's like a great way to start. And there's all these myths about tarot, so I kind of got into that too, about, oh, you have to be given your first deck, or oh, you can't read for yourself, it's gonna be biased, or oh, don't let anyone else touch your cards, they're gonna get your energy all over them and they'll never be the same. All these different things. And I don't know if you know me, and again, if you've listened to all the episodes, or at least a good chunk, right, you'll understand that I like learning about how things work. I like doing my own research. I like talking to people who I think are experts and I like their style. And I kind of like being rebellious. Um, and so those myths to me, like, were very much myths. I was like, let's not gatekeep tarot. I don't think that that's how it should be. Tarot's been practiced for centuries, if not longer. People have been divining or using different divinatory methods to read things in a myriad of ways. I'm excited to hopefully have someone on the podcast in the future talking about a very unique type of divination that they don't know if anyone else does. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, that was really important to me. So in seasons 2 and 3, I was like, let's get into it. I want to go through all the major arcana cards and then do an overview of the 4 suits, because the major arcana, there are 22 cards, goes 0 through 21 in numbers. And I was like, okay, well, that's like 2 seasons there, but not quite, because my seasons, I wanted them to be 13 episodes. Um, so I needed 26 episodes. So I was like, okay, great. We'll have the 22. We'll have the 4 suits. Well, I'll just talk about cups, swords, pentacles and wands as an overview, and like that'll be my, seasons 2 and 3. Great. Let me deep dive into some of the major arcana cards, because some of them get talked about a lot, and others like temperance or justice or judgment or even like strength, uh, I don't hear it get talked about a lot. And there's kind of like different ideas, or the Hierophant, people have mixed feelings about that. There's kind of the big ones that are in pop culture. So that's kind of what brought me into my next season, was that I was like, oh, I've been identifying as a witch for a couple years now, and I'm very into seeing, where tarot pops up in pop culture, how it's depicted. And so that was my season 4. I went through, 13 different pop culture moments or TV shows or movies or video games or other places where tarot popped up, sometimes just for an episode, sometimes for a bit longer, in books. I talked about Dune, the Messiah, where tarot is in that. And that was really fun. And I would love to keep talking about tarot and pop culture, because I think that that is super interesting. Because I feel like most of the time in pop culture it gets depicted poorly, both in that I don't think people think very highly of it. It gets made fun of a lot in pop culture. And then also it's not very deep oftentimes. And so, or people get kind of like stereotypical cards like the Tower or Death, and it's very literal in its interpretation of pop culture. So if you haven't listened to that season yet, check it out. And again, if you don't know all of the pop culture different references I talk about, listen to the ones that you do know about or that you're curious about. Like I said, some of them are certain episodes of TV shows. Some of them are witchy, some of them are not. White Lotus is in there. And then, yeah, some books and movies as well. So in season 5, I wanted to do something different, and I went through 13 common tarot spreads, right? This is what a lot of people that practice tarot on their own or kind of getting into it are looking for. There's a lot of tarot spreads online. They're being made all the time. And so I kind of wanted to go through some common ones that people hear about. I ended with the Celtic Cross, which is a 10-card tarot spread that's well known. I would say some people say they do it all the time. to me, 10 cards is like a lot. Really, the only time I ever think about doing more than like six is I can imagine doing like a year ahead spread where you do like one per month. Um, but again, so that was fun for me to kind of get into some of those. And then I also just did some, there's probably not 13 common ones. So there were ones that I found. I have many tarot decks now, and often in the tarot deck guidebooks, they will have, specific ones, or will have at the very least like ones that are common, like past, present, future, three card pulls, or we'll have one specific to the deck, which is very cool. Um, so yeah, and after that, I was like, okay, I really want to again deep dive. Let's go through every card, right? I had done all the major arcana cards. I did an overview of the four suits, so just like one suit per episode. And so in seasons 6, 7, 8, and 9, I went through the suit of wands, pentacles, swords, and cups. And I think there's 14 per season on those because there's the ace through 10, which is 10 cards, and then there's page, knight, queen, king. So yeah, those all have 14 because, we were close to 13 and I wasn't going to leave a card out. But yeah, so if you're ever looking for a specific card, the easiest way if you want to find the episode other than just like scrolling a lot is to go to my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot, and you can search in the top bar for the name of the card or a specific episode for any of these. And you'll be able to find them from there. And if you go to my website, you can always see like the images of the cards that I pull. On each episode, as well as any kind of like other reference information that I have. So like for the tarot and pop culture episodes, I have, I try to get a screen grab of the cards if it is shown in the TV show or whatever it is. So that was very fun. I got to use my Toshin, the Library of Esoterica tarot book, to go through a lot of that. They detail the major arcana cards, so I used it a lot for that season. And then for each of the suit cards, that was very fun. And I would go pull, I think, multiple cards, like each, let's look at the Six of Wands across decks and stuff like that. So that's very cool too, getting to do a comparison. In season 10, I went through and talked about tarot and witchcraft. So talked about different ways that you can combine tarot and other parts of witchcraft. I'm scrolling to find my specific season or episodes in there. So I talked about astrology, I talked about the solstice because that happened during summer solstice. So that was in like June. Daily practice, oracle, intuition, plant magic, pets, the moon, spells, sex magic, deities, and tarot for transformation. So that was kind of what's in the tarot witchcraft season, which again was just kind of pairing tarot with other aspects of witchcraft. Some of those episodes informed further seasons. So then I did a whole season on tarot and plant allies, which is basically associations between tarot and plants. And I didn't have a deck that corresponded to plants really in any way. I had the Anima Mundi deck by Megan Lyra-Wendon, which has mostly animals and then a couple like plants. The Emperor's like a Douglas fir tree, and the tower is Mount St. Helens. So like, not specifically animals, but other kind of like entities. But I really wanted to dive into tarot and plant allies, and that is how I found online a lot of references to the Herb Crafters Tarot by Letitia Guthrie, and I ended up getting that deck after that season. So that was super fun. So if you're ever looking for, you're into plants, gardening, anything like that, foraging, and you want to learn more about plants, and then also, right, how does it combine with tarot? That's a great season. That's season 11. In season 12, I talked about tarot and animals. So again, like if you're familiar with kind of like the concept of spirit animals, or even just like in a lot of cultures, we have certain associations with animals, like a bald eagle, or I don't know, a frog, or a wolf, or an owl. We talked about how tarot corresponds with that. For season 13, I knew that I was going to be, or what I was hoping, what I planned this from like, I don't know, early spring probably, after I did my tarot pop culture season. So I did an episode on Harry Potter in there. And I was like, ooh, I think I did two actually. And then I was like, oh, I would love to like really deep dive on like divination in the Harry Potter series. Like I could have a whole season of that. So I knew that the Enchanticon, which is a like fantasy convention that was happening in St. Louis in August of 2025, I was like, I would love to go there and present about aspects of tarot or divination in the Harry Potter series. And so I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to hold that season and hopefully to happen around that time. And I did get to present. I submitted everything, got accepted, and got to go to St. Louis to present a whole, I think, hour-long discussion on not just divination in Harry Potter, but a lot of like how divination is depicted and tarot or other aspects in general are depicted in the Harry Potter series and generally kind of like things about the author also. And so I created a whole season to talk about different aspects with Harry Potter. So like the perception of tarot or divination, the books, like talking about Professor Trelawney, the divination teacher, and different things. And we talked about kind of other ways of divining. So fire omens or reading smoke, like tea leaves, reading palms, using a crystal ball, astrology, dream interpretation, numerology. And so that was really fun to kind of, again, kind of deep dive into aspects of different types of divination and how tarot works along with it or how it gets depicted and talked about, and then specifically how it came up in the series. I grew up reading Harry Potter. It's kind of my first like fandom personally. And so that was really fun for me to do. After that, I did a frequently asked questions season because I felt like, okay, the Tarot Basics season was like a long time ago. Let's get into some kind of more like myth things or what's tarot versus oracle or stuff like that. So that was a good one. Season 15, I did tarot and crystals, and there are a lot of crystals. So I tried to do ones that are either very common or that I had. And I got a Stones of the Goddess book is what it's called that goes through a lot of different crystals and like their associations of goddesses, which helps also to associate them with tarot. So that was really cool. I picked up that book when I knew I was going to be doing that season. And so I'll link things like that in the show notes. I need to pause right now and actually do that so that I remember. All right, references noted for myself. Okay, yeah, so I talked about tarot and crystals. So next came season 16, which is about queer deities. So I was part of the Queer Joy Summit put on by Colette Dalton, and I talked about tarot and queerness as like a talk during that was pre-recorded, and then so people got to see it as the kind of summit played out, talked about queerness and queer joy. And then I also did an event during that, like a freebie live event with another witchy folk, Emily, and we did different tarot readings. So I did a collective tarot reading for folks that showed up, and then Emily Holding, I believe is her name, did individual tarot readings. And so we did a whole thing that we called the Mystic Hangout, where we got to kind of just talk tarot. And so that was really fun. And so I knew was like, okay, let me like theme my season kind of around that time. I was doing it with queer deities. And that one was very cool too, to get to like deep dive into queerness in like deities, so gods and goddesses, and how they've been depicted and how a lot of the time the things that get talked in like history or high school classes is not the queerness. A lot of times we focus on the like heterosexuality of a lot of mostly what we talked about are like Roman and Greek gods and goddesses. But it was very fun. I did delve into a couple other ones that are kind of like known as being queer or how we understand queerness now. But that was really cool too. And was kind of, it was a slightly like, what was I going to say? We kind of tied tarot cards to some of those folks. and then talked about the queerness aspect of it. And some of those I do have tarot cards. So in the Goddess of Love tarot deck by Gabriella Herstick and illustrated by Julia Popescu, they depict a lot of goddesses that are like outside of the like Western tradition. And so that was very helpful for some of the depictions. And my kind of like social media graphics designer and show notes creator, Kitty Garcia, who, if you listen to last episode, I got to interview them and talk about the work we've done together on the podcast. They created all the graphics for, I think, since like season, ooh, like probably like 6 on, or it was happening in like late spring of 2025. So when you see any pretty graphics, either on Instagram or on my website that are for the seasons, those are all done by Kitty. Not I. I was doing my own show notes at the beginning, but you can see they get much improved when Kitty came on board. And they're going to continue to work with me as I, yeah, slow down the episodes a bit. So get ready for more, perhaps like deeper what was I going to say, connections and planning on the podcast with graphics and such as we move forward. Because again, doing 264 episodes in 1 year, while I have more than one job. I'm a therapist and run my own private practice, and then I also do contract work for another therapy practice, and I do other thing. I do the podcast, and then also I've been holding full moon circles and doing tarot events outside of it, running a meetup group, going around the world and doing presentations when I think it's fun and want to do it. I was at Coma Pride this year in 2025 in July, which is kind of like my local pride. Had a booth there to talk about the podcast and pull cards for people. And then also had a crafting station because I love also teaching folks how to create their own tarot cards. So a lot. I was doing a lot, but it was all very fun. And so you get to kind of benefit from that. So yeah, in autumn or fall time after the Queer Deities season, and kind of like later October, early November, I did a season on autumn tarot spreads. So specifically like fall or autumn tarot spreads, some of which corresponded with the autumn equinox, and then others that were more spooky or, like about grief or death, other themes in that time of year. So if you're ever looking for, again, more tarot spreads, I have 2 seasons. I have just tarot spreads. So that's at least 26 spreads. And then, in some of my other seasons, I also do spreads. So most of those spreads I did find from other people. But again, check out recent episodes to check out my 2026 spread that I made. And you get to see kind of behind the scenes because I did an episode about how I made the spread, and you got to kind of hear me and understand how I created the prompts. And then the next episode, I go in and do my own spread. So that's kind of fun. And then season 18, I talked about color magic, which I love. So it was super fun to get to, again, kind of like showcase how I understand that, how I use color magic, and kind of my daily practice. And then also, again, like think about and look at some other colors. It was also very fun because I got to pull just colors from different decks. I'd be like, ooh, and like some of the images stand out in my mind where I'm like, oh, I am pulling that card from that deck because it's purple or whatever it was. So that was very fun to get to kind of, again, see colors across different decks. And then in season 19, after I got to see colors across decks, I talked about every deck I have and how to use it. So I now have 13 decks. So I got one right at the end of the season so I could have 13 because I wanted 13 episodes because I'm being stubborn like that. So the recent deck I got is a numerology deck, the Numerology Oracle by Rose Marie Templeton. And so that was also very fun. And I got to kind of like cherry on top of my year, get a 13th tarot deck. So I think I went into this year with maybe like 5 or 6 tarot decks. So I've doubled, and actually a lot of them are Oracle decks now. I've gotten more Oracle ones recently. So I think doing this podcast also kind of allowed me to, when I would do episodes about tarot versus Oracle, or kind of like understand tarot, I started to really enjoy Oracle cards and kind of the different structure they could provide, and just not that I was getting bored of tarot, but having, wanting to get more decks because I like having them now, and it's very fun to have such a variety to be able to pull from, especially for the podcast, but just for myself too. That I started to, when I would look at tarot decks, when I was looking at getting a 13th deck, I was like, I mean, they're pretty, but like I didn't feel like it was adding a lot to my current collection. So the last couple ones I've gotten are all Oracle decks because they are all very different. They have their own structure, and it felt like that was a nice like addition to my decks, like having some more depth in certain areas. So like I have a Norse goddess rune oracle deck. I have the Seasons of the Witch Samhain oracle, and then I just got the numerology one that I talked about. So I'll link all of these that I'm talking about in the show notes, since I'm talking about like almost all my decks right now. But yeah, so those are all my seasons. And then, yeah, season 20, I knew I wanted to start having guests on the podcast and like figure out how to do it. And we've been on video. So yeah, now I'm going to kind of move into the like what to expect in 2026 part of this. So we're moving away from the everyday part of Everyday Tarot, and that I will not be putting out episodes every day, Monday through Friday. I had very fun doing that commitment this year, and I am looking forward to not doing as many episodes for this year. So my plan right now is to do weekly episodes published on Monday mornings. That is what kind of works for my mind. If you have other thoughts about when you would like the podcast to come out, feel free to email me at me@camillesaunders.com if you have a preferred day that you would like it to come out, but I figured that at least Monday mornings you have all week to check it out. I will be continuing to have guests. I already have some more folks lined up on my schedule for the future, so probably at least right now I'm trying to think about my new structure for the podcast. And so I am imagining perhaps like one guest episode a month. Um, we'll see how that goes and if I can kind of like keep up that rate. But now that I have opened it up to guests, I'm starting to get requests and people soliciting me to be a guest on the podcast, which is cool. So that will most likely, or that will be continuing. It is mostly a TBD on the frequency, but my hope is that I will have about one a month going out. I do plan to do like a monthly, like perhaps a month ahead spread or pull every month. So, for this month, for January, we had the 2026 um, arrow spread for the year. So that might count for this month. We'll see. Technically, so today's episode will be, is on the first Monday of January. So I'll have 3 more episodes this month. So TBD on what those are going to be about. I have some figured out for February. And so I'm getting excited about that. They are all going to be video episodes going forward. Now that I have moved into the video world, all video episodes will be going out on Spotify and YouTube at the same time. So right now, all of my episodes audio get posted to YouTube as like a podcast. And also I will be additionally adding the video versions. And perhaps I will get savvy enough in the future to not have them go to YouTube twice. But for now, that's what's happening. Again, Kitty, my lovely podcast helper, is going to be helping me offload some of the things that I've been doing my own this year because of the sheer amount of episodes, like perhaps doing all my own posting and things like that. So yeah, those are kind of the big updates for the year ahead. I am continuing the podcast. I do still love it. I'm probably not structuring seasons in the same way, because 13 episodes would be like, slightly over a quarter or like over 3 months. I'm probably going to structure them more by month. So like I said, I'll probably like create a like, okay, we have one episode a month that's a guest. We have one episode that's like a spread. We have one that's like a deep dive research thing. And then we have one that's something else. I'm still in my like marinating into the new year part of myself. So bear with me, but I have figured, some of these things out for going forward. Yeah, and they will all be video episodes, so you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's just Camille A. Saunders. I will have it linked in the show notes as well. I also have posted on Instagram now, so if you follow me over there, I'm at professional.witch on Instagram. What else? What else? Yeah, I think everything else still feels kind of like TBD. There's some things I'm thinking about, like perhaps having some kind of membership community or a way to actually like interface the audience with each other. I would like to, one of my goals for 2026 in regards to the podcast is to connect more with the audience, understand who are you, who listens to this podcast. I know some of the people that do, and some of the people are starting to become guests, which is very cool. They're reaching out to me. Some of them are colleagues or friends I know, and some of them are not. Some of them have found this organically. So if you ever want to tell me how you found the podcast, or if you want to be a guest, you don't have to be an expert on tarot. You just have to want to talk about it. So I've had folks, as you've seen in this last season, I've had guests that are tarot curious, or maybe they really like oracle cards and they're a little intimidated by tarot. Some folks are, I would say, also they're in the tarot expert category, or they read tarot for others for money. So there's a wide variety, but I would say as long as you have some interest in tarot or something you want to share that's related to that on the podcast, or ask questions of me, I would love to have you. So there's a form to be a guest on the podcast that's in the show notes. If you're interested, that's the best way to do that. I think this was longer than I planned, because I didn't think I was gonna like detail every season, but that's what happened. So yeah, if you haven't checked out all those other episodes, I understand, unless you were literally listening 5 days a week for the whole year, you probably have a backlog of episodes. So if there were any season that sounded really fun, or you didn't catch it, go ahead, go back, check that out. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pull a card as to, yeah, what message. Let's see what the cards have to say. I'm gonna pull from my numerology deck because I just talked about it. Okay. So this is the numerology oracle here by Rosemary Templeton. Right. I have not pulled from this one very much, so get excited. Oops. So let's think about, yeah, what do the cards have to say? What message do they have for us today? What's the future of the podcast? What would the numerology oracle like to share? Ooh, that was a good shuffle. Okay. Okay, let's see here. I pulled 85 in reverse. So this way. And in the background of all these cards, I have like repeating patterns, often animals. So this one looks like a camel, and it says Ascended Master El Moria. So there are different types or like categories in this deck. And I don't really remember if they have reversals as much. So we might be um, interpreting. We might be making our own conclusions from that. Okay, let's see here. I have to go to the front to figure out the wording or the structure. That's what I mean. Like I said, I'm new to this deck, so apologies for taking a moment. There's the index. There we go. Okay, 85. Oh, it's literally the last card. Okay. No wonder I couldn't find it. Okay, 85. I guess I'm gonna read it upright because I don't really think this has reversals. Let me see at the front if it says anything about reversals. How to use the cards. Okay. I don't think it talks anything about reversals. So we'll see. Okay, so this is in the Ascended Master category of cards. So the first cards are all numerology cards, and that goes through the number 33. Then there are karmic cards, abundance cards, archangel cards, and ascended master cards. So this is an ascended master, and it is again El Moria. It says, in drawing this card, you have the influence of the Master El Moria right now. The Master encourages you to strengthen your willpower. He urges planet Uranus to bring forth its influence to assist with this and also to help give you patience when needed. Be mindful that Master El Moria is a hard taskmaster. It could be that you must decide either to keep to your present pathway or take the other fork in the road, that of self-discipline. Whichever path you take, remember to work hard and always be true to yourself. If you need assistance with issues of willpower, patience, or self-discipline at this time, call on Master El Moria. And it says the Master El Moria's colors are violet and amethyst and sometimes blue. And like I said, it kind of depicts a camel in the background. Oh, there we go. Camel. And the words associated with it are self-discipline. So if I think about this in reverse, right, it makes me think about the podcast of last year that I was like, yes, I am here for the self-discipline, right? Like I am committing to this. I'm doing this amount of episodes. I don't really care what anyone else thinks. I'm doing it. I can't totally see the future, but I'm going to commit to this and we'll see what happens. And I did it, right? This is the last episode of the 264 episodes from 2025, basically, that I committed to. And that feels really good. And if I think about this card being in reverse, I feel like it's saying, like, you did that, like, you had that willpower, like, you did it. You had the patience, the self-discipline to just see how it went out. You made it happen, even in late nights or technology snafus or confusion or busyness. And that actually, like, going forward, I'm actually letting go of a little bit of that, right? I think I still want to have some structure to the podcast. I want to keep doing it because I feel like there's still things I have to say about tarot and I like talking about it, but I'm actually allowing myself a little bit of a reprieve from the self-discipline, or just restructuring it, right? I'm saying, okay, now my self-discipline is maybe more about quality than about quantity. Whereas I felt like in 2025 it's really important for me to just like the quantity felt important. It felt like I had so much to say, so much that I wanted to explore about tarot. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. That I laid out all these seasons pretty early on. I mean, some of them I hadn't thought of for a while, but every couple of months I would get kind of like a download and be like, okay, here's my next couple of seasons. I would write down, episodes 1 through 13 and start filling it out. And I still do that. I have an extensive Google Doc that has every episode title and the structure and future guests I would love to have and what has been posted where and etc. All of that organizational stuff. So I feel like this card is saying again, like, you became the master. of self-discipline and structure and patience this year. And then actually going into this next year, we are allowing ourselves a reprieve from that, or like I said, a bit of a I keep thinking of the phrase like extending the leash, like we're allowing ourselves to be a little bit more free with it, to see what happens, to, like I said, right now I have like a couple episodes planned out, and then past like February, I'm like, question mark. I don't totally know what I'm going to be talking about. I don't have the clarity around the structure or the season type and stuff like that, but I kind of want to see what plays out as I continue to do episodes and see what happens when I change the frequency to less, right, less frequently. Perhaps I'm going to have, right, more time to do research, more time to try to maybe get some specific guests on here that I would love to have. I would love to have some folks that have created decks that I've used, or even just created decks in general, how they do that, what's the process, folks that are really, really into tarot, right, enough to create their own decks, and see like what, I want to know what their all of that is like, right? The process, you have the idea, how do you find the artist? Do you do the art yourself? Right? I have some decks that are the writer and the artist are the same person, but a lot of times they're different. And so that is also very cool. So yeah, that's kind of the message I get from this. And again, that was from the Numerology Oracle by Rose Marie Templeton. You can check out any of the references in the show notes. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast, you can fill out my form to be a guest. It's linked in the show notes. Links for the decks I talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast will come out Monday mornings going forward. You can email me, me@CamilleSaunders.com with your thoughts, questions, and more. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.